are embracing digital technology in a post-COVID world. So I am very pleased to say that we have two excellent panelists with us in Lloyd Atkin from BioD and Colin Bell, a colleague and associate at Winning Moves. The intention today is to be very to be largely sort of relaxed and discussion around various aspects. Lloyd and Colin are here and are able to share their excellent experience around their experience with their businesses and businesses that they support. Just in terms of, just to kick us off though, by way of sort of rules of engagement, I'm hoping that that we can enable everybody to be visible on the call. There is a chat facility which you can type any questions or comments as we go along. Please feel free to use it. And also there is a hand raising facility as well, and happy to sort of take any questions as we and comments, as I say, as we go along. What I would ask you to do is, just if you're not speaking, just to use the mute button, just to avoid any background noise. Colin and Lloyd have given up their time freely today, so again, I thank them for that. They're here to sort of share their practical experience of what they've done. It's not advice as such, so it isn't necessarily definitive. But what it will be is first-hand stories of examples of how their business has operated during and their plans for post-COVID-19, and particularly how digital technology has helped them. So just very briefly to introduce myself first, my name is Mark Modena. I'm the Digital Catalyst Program Manager, a program that is supported through the Humber Business Growth Hub and Grow My SME initiatives. We're part of the ICT for Growth. We offer one-to-one support to businesses on any aspect of digital technology adoption, and I'll be pleased to share a little bit more information at the end. For us, this is a critical topic. I guess we're a little bit biased, but technology is is everywhere now. There's very few businesses that don't have some involvement in technology, and it is a real differentiator and has the capability to transform and help businesses to grow, become more productive, and and so on. So our role is very much about that, helping to facilitate improvement and long-lasting impact in businesses. My role in the session is largely going to be about asking our panelists questions, and obviously keen to get their insights into this topic. So let me say a few words about about Lloyd and Colin. So I'll start with Lloyd. Lloyd is the managing director of local business BioD, based in Hull, who he joined back in 1997 before taking over the business in 2010. So BioD, I guess many of you will know them, pretty well known business, but they're the UK's leading manufacturer of environmentally responsible and ethically sound, hypoallergenic, vegan cleaning products. BioD have developed significantly under Lloyd's management, and certainly I've visited, and it's a pleasure to see the impressive work that they've done. They have grown to export to 20 countries around the world, and have won numerous industry awards. I think being part of BioD and driving it forward has given Lloyd the opportunity to really sort of exercise his entrepreneurial muscle, bringing manufacturing in-house, developing their product range, and taking the company to new levels commercially. He's also carried on previous legacy from the founder, being environmentally responsible and ethically very conscientious. It is a real differentiator for the business. He's got a passion for research and development, which has added huge value to BioD with new products and services and ways of working. And it's really significantly contributed to their ongoing economic growth, as well as sustaining their market share. So it really is a pleasure and a privilege to have Lloyd with us here today. Just turning to Colin. Again, Colin, very experienced consultant and owner, and has been an owner of various businesses. He was a founding partner of the Centre of Digital Technology Adoption, which champions how the acceleration of digital technology adoption can drive business and economic growth and competitiveness. It's obviously highly relevant to what we're doing today. He also works with national and regional government to champion small businesses, entrepreneurs, and to shape enterprise prize policy. Very much, an ideas guy, but with a with very sort of practical, feet on the ground approach to business management as well. So again, welcome to you, Colin, and brilliant to have you here with us. So I'm going to invite both of you to say a few words about digital technology and its impact on your businesses. So Lloyd, can I ask you to kick off, please?
Yeah, sure. I mean, as a business, we're a kind of traditional manufacturing business, but it's always been our philosophy. I think most, this might be a bit controversial, most business owners, to some degree, are quite lazy, and if you can employ technology to do things and make your life easier and do things more quickly and more efficiently and effectively, it's a win-win. Since I took over the business, we've invested heavily, quite a lot of our profits in digital technology, whether it be hardware or software, to run our full ERP system. And in the last couple of years, we've improved our productivity by about 15% by using digital technology, which is huge to us. And I think most of us know that productivity in the UK isn't particularly good. So if we can embrace technologies to improve that, I think we really have to. Particularly at the moment, I know we're kind of focusing on the COVID-19 stuff at the moment, and along with government guidance, the things we've employed during this period have helped keep, not only make us more productive or equally productive when working remotely, but keeping people safe too.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Lloyd. Colin, you have to say a few words as well.
Yeah, so with regards to myself, essentially, what I run is a consultancy operation. So I tend to have a team of we'll have a team of consultants in place, and that's backed up by an admin and support team. Luckily, when COVID hit, our consultants tend to be remote and home based anyway, so there was limited impact there. However, the support team are office based, so we had to get them home working. But we did have an initial issue around phone systems, so we had to very quickly put in place a cloud-based telephone system so that we could deal with companies. And what coincided that was actually a real spike in inquiries coming into the business. So a lot of companies were contacting us almost in almost a bit of a state of panic. It's when lockdown first hit, when there wasn't a great clarity in terms of how government was going to respond and all those sort of things. So we had a real spike that we had to deal with. So actually getting that cloud-based system in place almost in a matter of days was of absolute critical importance. Moving forward, although home working's had a minimal impact on the consultancy operations, of course, a lot of the way our consultants work is physical. They visit companies, they have a look around, they speak to staff, they get people together, and there's lots of sticky notes and canvases on walls and all those sort of things. Of course, that's totally changed. So our consultants now are dealing with people remotely, on things like Zoom. But a lot of the work that we've been doing with companies is ultimately, firstly, how do you deal with lockdown? So there was a lot of work initially helping, supporting people to get home working infrastructures in place, get the technology in place to support that. Now we're working with companies to really think about how you're going to get back up and running, how you're going to adapt your systems and processes to conform with social distancing rules primarily. Quite practically, that's what we're working with people on, and actually what part can technology play in that. So normally the techniques we use are things like customer journey mapping, process mapping, identifying where we can remove things, adapt things, and we're having to cut a long story short, we've identified and we're using technology applications to facilitate that process collaboratively with companies online. So where we used to work very physically with companies around that, again, there would be lots of sticky notes and interaction and people in the room. We've had to move that online and to use applications to do that, and touch wood, that's been really good actually. I think we've probably been able to deliver 95% of what we normally would do and get the relevant levels of interaction with clients through those tools. So it's been a steep learning curve, but hopefully it's working well.
Yeah, I think it has been for everybody, Colin. That's great. Thank you both for those opening thoughts and remarks. So, as I say, we've got a structure for the session where we've got a number of questions we're going to put to Lloyd and Colin, and perhaps chip in a little bit myself. The intention though is that it isn't that it's going to be too structured. So we're sort of keep an eye open for questions and comments and so on from yourselves as attending as we go along, and certainly intending to make it sort of quite conversational between us. So please do feel free to chip in as we go along. What we will do when we get to if we get through all of the sort of set questions that we've put in place, there will also be an opportunity to take questions as well before at the end of as I say, at the end of that part. So I guess starting with the obvious question, and I think you've both sort of touched on it a little in your opening remark. It's just really to ask a little bit more about the various impacts that COVID-19 has had on your businesses. Happy for either of you to pick that up first.
Okay, well, for us, it hasn't made a huge difference to us operationally. We've been producing throughout. We make cleaning products, including antibacterial and surface sanitizers. So we've been very busy, but we've had the issues where demand has increased and capacity is reduced to allow social distancing on the factory floor. So we've been very busy, but we haven't necessarily been able to take the most of the opportunity it's presented. The priority is keeping people safe. From an office point of view, it was much more difficult to run the administration of a business remotely. We normally are 10 people in an open plan office, so we can communicate very quickly and efficiently simply by talking to each other. And we found, one of the things we found by moving remotely, we moved very quickly. We were lucky we have a great IT support team. They got everybody up and running and attached to our servers and our ERP systems. But what we found was that we tended to pass lots of pieces of paper through lots of different hands, which when those hands are working remotely became very cumbersome. We were scanning things and emailing documents over to each other. But then we spoke to our partner in that we use an SAP system, and we work with a development partner on there. Most of these systems now tend to be pretty open source, so you can manipulate them as you wish. And we already worked with them, telling them what we want it to do, and have made a lot of improvements to our SAP system. But because of this, we made some that we weren't previously aware of, and now we can move information digitally much more efficiently than we ever did in the office. And works orders are automatically updated, stock positions are, production works orders are all digitally updated. So it's actually improved us, but we didn't know we needed this technology until COVID-19 because everybody was in the office together.
Yeah, absolutely. I do. I remember when we spoke before, you mentioned that you're pretty positive about your external IT support. So have you approached that? Do you have in-house support people at all, or have you outsourced that?
No, we don't. We outsource all of it. We're not experts in it, but even though we embrace digital as a whole, we tend to work with experts on certain things. I mean, our IT locally, they do the hardware, the support, the network, the maintenance of server, etc. Then for our ERP system, we have a specialist in that we work with, and we work with them both quite closely. So it depends, we've spoken to you guys about things before as well. So it's about getting the best people for the job, I think, not trying to fit square pegs in round holes.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's great. Thanks, Lloyd. I'm quite keen to come back to asking a bit more about your. There's a couple of things that have come out about ERP, your ERP system, and SAP, to share a bit more about how that works for you with folks, and also this the gain in productivity you've got. But I'll just pass over to Colin just to. Again, I know you raised mentioned quite a few things in your intro, Colin. But yeah, anything else you would share about the impact that COVID-19 has had on your business, also businesses you're working with?
Yeah, I think just starting with the direct business, I mean, we're in the territory where we can homework, so we anticipate that we're going to be home working for the foreseeable future. So obviously we're getting we've got the structures in place to deal with that. But I suppose one of the main issues that we've got, it's the human impacts of that. The just making sure that we're very conscious of employees' mental health, physical health, recognising that everyone's different and everyone needs different things. Some people have a high need for social interaction and some people don't. They're quite task orientated. So just trying to get that balance, and I think at the start there was, at 9 o'clock every day the team came together. We had a phone call. We've gradually eased off that a bit and kind of put a more structured kind of meeting schedule in place that tries to cater for the social side, but also I suppose the task-based side of things. That be focused on the things that we need to deliver. So, every Friday morning. So what I did before this, we had a kind of cuppa and a catch up. We've kind of termed it, and all. So that's more the social side of things. And then we've got meetings that are very much about the business and how we're dealing with it. But I think the other thing that from a leadership point of view, I've just made sure that every week I have a one-to-one with everyone just to check they're okay. And everyone's got other stuff going on in their lives, pressures. There's the whole homeschooling side of things. People have maybe got family who aren't well, and everyone's being affected by this in different ways. And as leaders, we've got to recognise that and offer flexibility. And I think technology's got, using technology to facilitate communication has been absolutely critical. I dread to think how we would have coped with this, be it even just 10 years ago, even 5 years ago. We wouldn't have had the digital infrastructure to cope the same. So I think that's something that personally I've been really, really focused on, just making sure people are okay. It's been a big focus and continue to do so. From a client from a client point of view, as I say, initially, a lot of our work was making sure that people had the digital infrastructure in place to make sure that they could keep trading. For those people who could trade, at the time, to make sure that they had the relevant things in place to remain operation. And that tended to be I say there was a lot of focus around getting cloud-based infrastructure in place so people could operate effectively. Some people already had that in place, and they found it much easier to make the transition. They've been much more resilient. And then the other side of things has been moving in terms of the demand side, helping people put the e-commerce systems in place so they can capture demand online rather than through physical means.
No, it's good. And it contrasts obviously with sort of Lloyd's experience in the sense of you. I know you've obviously got the two sides of the business, which is the production side, but of course you've got the administration, marketing, and so on side of things as well. And obviously that's been quite different. So you continued as usual and had to take certain steps around sort of social distancing to keep operating, as I understand it.
Yeah, we've reduced the number of people online and facilitated social distancing, but again, it's about kind of people handling things. We've looked at government guidance. We have a canteen here. There are 35 people on the shop floor, so it's staggering breaks and all of those practical things. But from a digital point of view, we've introduced tablets with software that all works. Orders are now produced on those. They're sent to the tablet of the person it's involved to. The individuals have ownership of that tablet, so they're not having to pass them around. And I say, even productivity-wise, we'd started touching on this before COVID-19. And it's not about kind of time and motion. When they start production, they have to press a button on the tablet. We used to have bits of paper where people put the start time, finish time, if they had any downtime issues. Well, now those things are all recorded digitally. So then we can, the software then graphs it all up. So we can see if there are repeating issues, etc. And it's about identifying bottlenecks in our process rather than keeping tabs on how people are doing. And it's like Colin was saying, that kind of transition to home working, and we use Microsoft Teams, and we have the general chat on there for the kind of office banter, and just a 5 or 10 minute catch up every day. There are also other digital tools out there. We're a Mindful Employer, so Mindful Employer has a great website about people's mental well-being and so on, and there is actually a number they can call if they don't speak to somebody at the office. But I think, yeah, as business leaders, Colin's absolutely right, keeping in touch with our people and just making sure they're okay. I was speaking to Mark about this yesterday. We've kind of had a problem with people who've been working from home now for 8 weeks and have really quite carefully isolated, or 10 weeks, and have now developed some kind of fear of returning to work, and being mindful of that. It's kind of an irrational agoraphobia almost, because they haven't been exposed. Conversely, in the factory here, we have issues with people becoming a bit complacent because they've worked throughout the process, and keeping them maintaining that social distancing is challenging sometimes.
Yeah, we've definitely found the same as a business. I think sort of some of the impacts we've had has been existing work in some areas has sort of slowed down, and certainly where we've sort of anticipated new business has been slower coming through, just because there's been delays with clients and what have you. What that's led to in terms of from a people side of things is that we have used the furlough scheme, and as you say, once folks have been off for a while, you can get very, very cautious. What we've tried to do, and there is some level of flexibility within the scheme. I don't think it was initially, but it was introduced afterwards. Is that people can be furloughed and then unfurloughed to and come back for a period of time and then leave, and that's helped in terms of keeping people keep people fresh and keeping them sort of reasonably sharp and used to being in work. Clearly, that doesn't, in our case, because everybody's working remotely, that doesn't, sort of get them from leaving home. And I think what you both said about, regular check-ins, and I actually really like the Mindful Employer website, Lloyd, is excellent as well in terms of supporting yourself to support your employees, which is great. And of course, things like, obviously, sort of travel has has become non-existent as well. So that's led to sort of different ways of doing things. But again, I think with the technologies that are available, you can overcome that at least. And I know it does depend which sector you're in and what your situation is. It does really vary. It's not easy to sort of to give hard and fast generalizations about how things are and how to manage them. It really is, I guess everybody has their own context and their own situation to work from. I mean, clearly, you're both business leaders and have that sort of that responsibility, and clearly have sort of taken great care to support your teams through that. Is there anything else in terms of sort of leadership activities you've undertaken to help manage the business through and help people?
Can I just kind of linking back to something? I'm quite interested just to ask Lloyd a question how he's dealt with something, but just a practical point on the furlough scheme, Mark, that you mentioned. Just in case people aren't aware, if an employee had, but basically moving forward, it's only going to be employee. There's a cut off in terms of future furloughing. So if an employee hasn't been furloughed before the 10th of June, you won't be able to furlough them in the future. So just a point of clarification. So if you're thinking about furloughing people, make sure that you do it before the 10th of June. Otherwise, they won't be eligible for the furlough scheme moving forward. So it's quite recent guidance. So just in case people aren't aware, just to make sure that we.
That's a great point. Thanks, Colin. Yeah.
Yeah, because then there's maybe people you think you can bring back part time. If you haven't furloughed them before the 10th, then make sure you do so. Obviously, that would have to be for a 3-week period. So just for that was worth highlighting. Sorry, Lloyd, I'm just thinking about the businesses that we're working with at the moment, and obviously the context is around getting back up and running for a lot of companies at the moment. And of course, one of the major challenges that they're looking at the moment is how do we get the numbers to stack up? So we're probably going to have to open at reduced capacity. We're still going to be incurring costs. So how do we do it in a way where costs don't overshoot demand? And a lot of the work we've been doing, it's been looking at online trading and digital fulfillment and all those sort of things. But I'm just quite interested in how have you dealt with that? How have you made your numbers stack up, I suppose?
Well, we've had to remain productive. Obviously, our overheads are fairly fixed. We operate a fairly large factory. It has been challenging. We've had to move things around. I mean, 2/3 of our space is storage. So we've had to sacrifice some of that and using some outside storage so we can move things around to facilitate it. But, I mean, from a very pragmatic point of view, there's no point us having everybody locked down for 2 weeks because we've allowed COVID to get into the factory. So I think we've had to be pragmatic. We have missed opportunities. There's no two ways about it. And lots of our 2/3 of our business is bricks and mortar stores, so many of them have been closed. As you said, there's been a massive movement to kind of online fulfillment. So it's been important to us to gear up and be able to supply those channels effectively, which are often differently packaged, etc. But as long as we were thinking about that shift, it allowed us to make sure we had the additional packaging we needed and things like that. Our ERP system monitors profitability. It's a live system, so it refreshes every couple of minutes. So we can look at exactly what our fixed costs are. We're also working lots of overtime, so our ERP system factors that into the profitability of every production run we do. So we can make sure we have run at reduced profitability. But I think for a lot of businesses, it's been about survival and getting through this situation with a still functioning business and healthy people to see us forward when we get through this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that, just again, practically thinking about some of the clients we're working with at the moment, so restaurants, cafes have kind of moved to that takeaway model initially, but when we're looking at them almost reopening their core business, which is, you know, people coming into the cafe or the restaurant, taking a seat, having a meal, etc. What they're grappling with is kind of cost per square, or cash and cost per square metre, and actually how to make that work. And what we're finding is actually that balance between the takeaway, which was never their core business, never the way they operated. Actually, that's so important to making the numbers stack up for them moving forward. They need a balance of demand for takeaway and people actually coming in and buying a coffee and sitting down to make the cash per square metre kind of work for them. And there's a lot of change, you know, those whole operational models, you know, people having to adapt what they're doing and run different ways of operating and generating demand in parallel, I think, and that's going to continue for some time.
Absolutely, and I think we're very much with restaurants. A friend of mine owns one of the restaurants in Holland. He's going to open at third capacity, but he'll need almost as many staff to run it. His fixed overheads remain the same. So, as you rightly say, it's kind of, I mean, he doesn't believe that the takeaway works for him because of the quality of the food, etc., and his location is a bit out of the way. I mean, he's on the marina in Hull, so getting to and from there means it's a long delay for food to get to people. So they're doing a model where it's kind of, they give you everything and you prepare it at home, but it's about finding that balance. Your sauce just needs warming up, that's already, etc. But they couldn't function as a business at a third capacity and pay their overheads. So, I think people are having to be creative, and takeaway is working for lots of people, but there are other options to make things work. I mean, we use a lot of trigger sprays, etc. About 80% of the world's supply comes out of northern Italy. Well, they were locked down long before we were. So even though our supply comes from the UK, the demand on that supply increased massively. So we'd had to be flexible with our customers and change to a type of desktop, and then use digital to kind of inform people that's what we were doing, and change the packaging slightly, because we felt it was more important to keep supply in the system, especially the kind of antibacterials. We also rationalised our range, so the more minor products that are kind of lower volume or slower moving, we just switch those off to supply the products that are required at the moment, and to conserve packaging for those products, etc. So we probably, not a huge amount, 12% of our products probably switched off. Things like glass cleaner or furniture polish that weren't particularly relevant to the current situation. And that way we managed to keep all of costs. We have less changeovers, etc., which makes us more efficient, which offsets some of the increased overheads.
Yeah.
It strikes me, Lloyd, that and I know I alluded to it before, I wanted to ask you a bit more about it, but you mentioned already quite a few times about your ERP system provided by SAP, which seems critical. It strikes me, certainly when we've spoken previously, that having that information at your fingertips. So looking at sort of clearly sort of you've managed a number of things, even in what you just said. Changed to see the packaging very quickly. You've obviously switched fast, but also looking at your lines, knowing very being very close to it, so what are your more important lines, and what are less important, and where the volumes are. It seems pretty critical too. But I know you have done quite a bit of work, I think, to make the actual system work for you, isn't it? Off the shelf, it probably isn't quite as effective.
Yeah, I don't think any system really out of the box can suit any business. One size doesn't fit all, does it? Particularly with digital. I mean, we used to run a Sage system, which is great at finance, but not very good at manufacturing. Even though we operated Sage Manufacturing. So we spent a lot of time choosing the right package for us. But out of the box, it didn't do what we wanted it to do, SAP. There are add-ons by a company called Boyum, which then that gives you kind of open source coding, and we have a partner who are kind of experts in SAP, we have one who are experts in BOIM, and we've bolted on lots of different aspects to our SAP to make it do what we want it to, including having kind of bespoke dashboards, etc. And I'll be honest, a couple of years ago when we first installed SAP, these things are expensive to implement, and I was kind of reluctant to kind of make huge investments in bespoke programming when I wasn't sure it would work. But actually, we've got some breaks by being a bit clever with our suppliers. We're now a kind of BOIM innovation partner, so we get some breaks on that, and they want to use us to showcase what their technology can do. So they actually do quite a lot for the money we pay them. And we get a lot out of it, and we're kind of pushing boundaries then. Talking from a financial point of view, it's great you can use this kind of thing with your R&D tax credits to help develop bespoke things, to innovate that then the IT company can share with other people. And we're a real life model for them. It's, we're making stuff, and we want to make it more effectively and efficiently and maintain quality standards, etc. So we have a really good partnership and dialogue with them on how we do that. And it's, kind of often it's just we wanted to do this. I mean, it's a full ERP system, so it manages our finance, our HR, sales process, production management. We've had the quality system built into it, so on the tablets, the quality parameters that are recorded, if they're outside preset parameters, then it won't release that bulk batch for production. It physically can't be used, so we don't have any of that. It removes a lot of the human error. I mean, if it's a viscosity thing, for instance, I'm then fired an email wherever I am, and it can say, are you happy this? Do you want this to be released? Somebody's requesting it to be released, but actually they physically can't do it unless it's approved in that way. Our stock movements, everything's recorded. I'm a great believer. You can't do it at the moment, but going and seeing what great looks like. So with non-competing businesses, we in Hull and outside of Hull, we supply Ocado. So not many people are doing digital fulfillment better than them. So I've spent several days down at their main site, seeing how they do things and seeing what technology we can adopt. I appreciate that's more difficult at the moment, but it is that kind of what does good look like, and we do lots and lots of that, and then bring in the parts of what they do that would suit our business. And I say it's led to huge gains in productivity for us.
It's incredible, Ocado, isn't it? Just the kind of grid system and the robots kind of flying about everywhere, and it's a pretty incredible operation, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, we're not Ocado. We don't have the scale or the finances to do what they've done, but there's certainly aspects of what they're doing. It's great. There have been locations where they're picking, they have the locations behind them, even where they're not fed to the lines. And they just have a simple LED light on them to say, this is the bin you should be picking from for the right goods. Well, when we operate over 1,000 pallet spaces in our warehouse, with our most commonly used components, integrating that technology has saved us huge amounts of time. Week on week, we're talking man hours, 4, 5, 10 man hours a week we're saving, which helps us be productive and competitive when most of my competitors have very low overhead bases. They're in the Far East or Eastern Europe. Any advantage we can get to compete with efficiency is useful.
There's a danger that things like that, in terms of making time to see what else is going on out there, and actually sort of looking at what's coming over the horizon a little bit as well, that time isn't made for that very often. As business leaders, business managers, we're very much about the here and now, and trying to get the product out the door or whatever. And actually, I'm sort of feeding a little bit with this, but I know that you do sort of try and take that little bit of a step back, so you can genuinely lead the business. You can sort of have that overview and can keep an eye on these other areas. So you can keep. I know you're constantly looking at ways of improving how you do things and so on.
Yeah, well, I think good business practice says a leader should spend a third of the time in the business, a third of the time on the business, and a third of the time outside of the business, meaning a third of the time doing your job, a third of the time working on strategy and future, and another third of the time seeing what best practice looks like. I'm not going to pretend I'm anywhere near that perfect kind of 30-30-30, but it's something I'm aware of. So, you know, I try to make sure that I'm spending time outside the business looking at what's good. I make sure I time block time for looking at strategy and development. And if I didn't do that, we wouldn't have foreseen the things like the changes of packaging, etc. You know, we knew what was going on in Italy. We know our supply chain, even though we know that our product's UK source, we knew it would affect our supply chain. So before the problem hit, we were trying to solve it. And I guess it's very easy to be very introvert in your business. You know, many small business owners, you're very, very busy. You've got a big burden, which is why we utilize technology to kind of free up time to do the things that are important. It's that kind of
yeah. I also picked up what you said about R&D tax credits as well. I mean, I think businesses generally do take more advantage of that these days, but it is still an area where, you know, they could do a lot more, and certainly sort of looking at opportunities where, you know, you're innovating with products and services or with technology. There's a real opportunity to take advantage of that scheme. So those that are doing things in that area, you know, it's well worth a look, because it, you know, so financially it can be quite, you know, very rewarding, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and anything you're doing bespoke where you're kind of manipulating, whether it be, you know, whatever the software is, if you're doing it bespoke or you're doing something new and innovative with it, it will generally fall under R&D tax credits. I think a lot of people do take advantage of it now, but a lot of people still don't realise that it does apply to those digital applications.
Yeah. No, brilliant. I've actually had a question in from the audience, so I'll deviate from the from the sort of set ones that we've got. The question is do your businesses have an existing occupational health advisor? If yes, okay. If not, would you see a demand to access this service for your staff, especially sort of longer term? I think particularly looking forward, and you know, as a result of the impact of COVID-19.
Well, I think we've already kind of seen signs of this. You know, we set up the technology for people for working from home, but not necessarily the ergonomic working space. You know, you've got people sat on dining chairs and things like that. So it is something we've become aware of. We do have an outside health and safety consultant which incorporates occupational health within the office, but now we've had to start moving that to kind of remote and supporting that financially as well. I think it is something that will become more relevant. I think lots of employers are now investing in kind of stand-up, sit-down desks for people at home and proper headsets so that they can use their VoIP systems from home effectively. So yeah, I think there is definitely a need for it going forward, and it could be an opportunity for somebody to be working in that space.
Yeah. I think the other thing around that naturally, business resilience, risk assessment, so all those sort of things are just more commonplace and more mandated now. Certainly for companies with more than 50 employees. So the market drivers are in place. And another thing, just I think through the COVID crisis, just employers have become much more aware of the physical and mental well-being of their staff. You know, I think it's almost just kind of helped that whole topic bubble up to the surface. And certainly one of the things that I've noticed, and I think it was reflective with, you know, in seeing some businesses choose to shut down, even though technically they didn't have to. You know, businesses have genuinely taken a people first approach to this situation. You know, which has been, you know, in times really difficult commercial decisions to make, but they've made them because they want to protect their people and make sure that they're physically and mentally safe. So I think yeah, absolutely that's an area of growing prominence. So something we welcome into our business, and you know, I'm sure with, you know, the businesses we're working with, it's certainly something that they're more aware of and in more higher demand.
Yeah, I think it kind of falls into the mindful employment again, doesn't it? Which,
yeah,
you know, we've been doing for some time. I think this, you know, this has kind of polarized people on it, hasn't it? And and it's more difficult just to see how people are getting on. So it's physical, mental well-being, wherever they're working within the business and wherever they're working physically. It's got to be more of a priority. So I think that it's only going to grow that. It's much more difficult remotely than it is in an office setting. You know, having risk assessments and so on and so forth is difficult in people's homes or wherever they're working from.
Absolutely.
Great, thanks, guys. Roseanne, I hope that's answered the question, but please feel free to come back if there's any follow-up to that. I've also had a very useful comment from Phil Hall. Phil's from Hull Council, and we work with Phil. Phil, thank you for that. It's mentioned that the Business Growth Scheme are able to provide grant support to Humber SMEs to access the health safety specialist support to help them reopen their help you reopen premises. So very useful tip there, and I think a useful resource to consider in terms of helping around reopening. Going back to Lloyd, you mentioned obviously about the changes you've made, and wanted to sort of to direct towards Colin. You've obviously a big part of what you're doing around business support, and of course it's very much linked to digital, but it's about businesses what we commonly term as pivoting and to change their approach, whether that's the product and service or new markets or customers and so on. Obviously, you're doing a lot of work in that area. Just wonder if you can share any good examples of things that you've seen, but also the sort of work that you're doing to help encourage that.
Yeah, so lots of. I mean, a big part of what we're doing, we're helping people consider the options from a demand creation point of view, but also an operational point of view. So yeah, doing a whole. So first and foremost, the question is, how do you generate working capital? How can you get cash into your business? Or how can we get customers and sales? So, I mean, we're working with manufacturers. So working with quite a few manufacturers at the moment who have pivoted into the supply of PPE. Must say there's been a bit of challenge around that. It's not as straightforward as you may think, actually navigating the system, but we've got several manufacturers, be it masks or gowns, or kind of pivoted and moved into that area, and now trading and got contracts with the NHS. So that's a really big win. Again, there's probably three kind of, I suppose, options that we've been working with people on. It's almost actually coming back just to give some practical examples. Working with several food businesses we've already mentioned. The takeaway, the delivery options, making sure that people can order online, that they can take cashless payments, all those sort of things we've been working with people on. Hairdressers, again, hairdressers is a market that continues to be in lockdown, and we don't know when that'll reopen. So, but people have an issue with getting haircuts. So actually, several hairdressers we're working with, they're now using online platforms to train people, spouses and someone within the house, in actually how to do a basic haircut. So they've been talking people through it and sending the kind of razors. So they've actually been selling equipment, which is a new line for them, and they've actually then been training people to do it. Online wine tasting, online cookery courses. I think Lloyd, you mentioned one of your contacts, is doing something similar there. Who's got a restaurant. So a whole range of different things. But equally, there are those companies who just find it very, very difficult to trade. So quite a lot of the work we've been doing is just helping people access cash, working capital, apply for bounce back loans and C-bills, and kind of get all those sort of things through the system and make the preparation. So when they can reopen, they can do so in a way that where the numbers stack up. just figuring out different ways. Every business is different, but there's normally a way to repurpose skills and resources to supply a different market. It is challenging, though. I'm not going to skirt over that. To do it at a level that is going to generate enough demand that will see businesses return at pre-COVID levels is a real challenge. And I think that just kind of a reality check, really. Although we're helping businesses to keep going, to kind of get cash into the business, I think the vast majority of the businesses I'm certainly working with, once they do reopen, they're probably not going to do so at the pre-COVID capacity levels. So they're probably going to require less staff and all those sort of things. So I think just although we're helping people keep going, hopefully putting them in a position where they can focus on the recovery and new opportunities and new operational models, that we're equally working with companies to prepare for making some pretty tough decisions. So it's the upside and the downside, I suppose, we're having to support companies through. Sorry, I've just put a downer on that, haven't I? But it's just.
No, I think at the moment, I think what you're kind of alluding to is that it's really important that we're very agile at the moment, whether that's pivoting your products and services, but it's looking for opportunities where you wouldn't necessarily find them. As I said, a lot of the bricks and mortar stores, which are 2/3 of our business, have closed down, but we've shifted that demand to online, which is great for the online customers. We're still there to support the bricks and mortar retailers who are starting to reopen again now. But I mean, we supply a holiday lets company, they've actually, we've done some work with them. They're gearing up to kind of fill those holiday lets and hope to have them open. So they're pipelining that now. And they also have lots of cafes and restaurants, etc. We've never supplied that part of the business. But because of the situation and the difficulties with COVID, their normal procurement process, we've managed to bypass that entirely and just supply the products. We haven't had to become an approved supplier, etc. We've just been able to supply into those areas that are still functioning. So I think it's important that you're agile and kind of look for the, again, it's that spending time outside the business or strategically looking for the opportunities that are appropriate to what you can do and what your customer, it's kind of finding those issues that your customers or clients have and helping solve them.
It comes back to making time for that stuff, doesn't it? Really, we had something similar. The sort of the around business support, the industry we sort of operate in, there was a lot of surveys flying around straight after after all this sort of started, and but we with our sort of research hats on, we could see that there wasn't particularly high quality and there's no consistency. So and obviously we want to do something to help towards the cause as well. So we saw an opportunity to develop a new software solution to not only sort of to improve the quality of sort of questions and the data collected, but actually what you find commonly with surveys is that businesses or respondents don't tend to get anything back. So actually providing them something of value back to help them then cope with the situation was a little bit of a differentiator. But you're right, you still need to make that time, I guess, in terms of to be looking for those things and do the things that and almost sort of slightly pivoting your offer really.
Well, again, it's a bit of a double-edged sword, isn't it? I think for a lot of businesses have been very busy through this period, but a lot of businesses have now got the time where they can look at their strategic outlook and think about those things and how digital particularly can improve, how they offer their products or services online. I mean, I've obviously talked a lot about products, but we're getting a lot of services online now. We have kind of a fairly robust training program. Well, not most of this is kind of classroom based, but the more agile companies are already offering this kind of accredited training online, and it's full 2-day courses, etc. So there are services can be offered effectively too, utilizing digital technology.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just something to touch on, because Lloyd, you mentioned the kind of tourism industry there, and I think that's particularly an industry that's been hit really, really hard by COVID. But again, we're starting to work with. I'll see demand really increasing from tourism clients at the moment, and essentially what they're starting to do, they are starting to take orders. So it could be a campsite or a B&B or whatever, but they're getting online payment and booking systems in place where they didn't already have them. Obviously ramping up promotion. They're taking bookings, but it's almost on a buy it forward basis. So they're anticipating that sometime in July they'll be open for business again. You know, obviously at reduced capacity and within social distancing guidelines. So they're getting everything in place for that. But you can actually make the booking now. But they're being really upfront by saying, actually, you know, the chances are, you know, we can't 100% guarantee that you're going to have a holiday or be able to pitch a tent or whatever on such and such a day. But, you know, we'll give you the flexibility to move that, you know, so it's almost, you know, secure your holiday now, because actually I think the industry anticipates, because of barriers to foreign travel and going on holiday abroad, actually maybe there'll be a lot of demand for staycation this year. So actually book now, because chances are it's going to get booked up, and reserve your slot actually. So as and when but what's really useful for those businesses, because people are paying now, it's getting cash in the bank. So that's actually a really useful model. But I think the conditions are probably right where that, you know, where that'll work, where people actually make those payments now, you know, and realise that actually we maybe won't be able to guarantee the date, our kind of preferred date, but you know, the businesses we're working with, they're just being dead upfront about that. So you know, we hope you can come now, but on that date, but chances are you won't. But you know, but we guarantee at some point you'll be able to have that holiday.
Yeah, well, as you say, I think the most agile people in that space are utilising that opportunity to get some cash into the business, making robust guarantees about, you know, you're not going to lose your money, and it might not happen now, but it'll happen then. And then there are further opportunities where they want to give people peace of mind, so they're gearing up the businesses, even in tourism, for coping with COVID-19, whether it's better sanitising, you know, more toilet facilities, so they're splitting them, whatever it may be, better access to food, or, you know, so that if they can't deliver breakfast, they're delivering breakfast packs. So again, it's that agility, isn't it? When the kind of innovators, they're getting people in, getting cash into the business and gearing the business up for a future with COVID-19 as a reality.
Absolutely, yeah. And that cash helps them put some of those things in place, doesn't it, as well? So,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It also comes back to a point that you made before, Lloyd, that, you know, people have a bit more time on their hands, and there's a lot of things we can do that you know, in terms of things like marketing on a shoestring as well, and learning, you know, having a bit more time. Maybe, you know, that isn't something people will normally comfortable with, but there's a bit of time to get to, you know, to build some competence around that. So there's things like that you can use your time for, and, you know, as well as looking at your offer, but also how you use digital tools to cost effectively market the business.
Absolutely. Well, digital marketing is so prevalent now, isn't it, and so important, and it moves at such a pace that and there are lots of resources out there to help you learn about doing it. Again, we have an external marketing partner, but if it's something at the moment where you can upskill internally, you can very low cost do lots of things digitally to improve your marketing, and with social and so on, people are doing it very, very effectively.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got another question in, actually. Suzette, apologies for keeping you waiting, because I think you put this up actually, it's not about 10 minutes ago. But I think a question to ourselves as panelists, but also I think more widely, and please feel free to use the chat facility for this, to respond to this if you do know the answer. Just again, with working from home, there's a high demand for webcams. We're finding it impossible to get any quality ones. Has anyone found a supplier who can deliver? Now, I know we tend to have ours built into our machines, so we haven't tended to need any. So I don't myself, I must admit. But anybody else is aware of any suppliers that might be able to help us out?
We're using laptops with built-in webcams, so we haven't had the need. So sorry, no, we can't help with it.
Yeah. Well, we'll leave it open. If anybody is aware of any suppliers, please just add it to the chat. It might be more than just yourself, Suzette, that sort of is interested in that. So hopefully one or two ideas will come back to you. We've also got another question from Roseanne. I actually didn't thank you last time, but thanks for the questions. So this one, is there a plan to identify when and where, if there will be surplus offices, premises centrally amongst businesses, through a central point, which will allow potential providers who may be looking for space to operate out of, or will it be up to potential customers to look for that space? So I guess in terms of within the Humber area, that's probably not something that's particularly aware of. I do know we do have a few delegates attending from the council and what have you, who may be aware of schemes and ideas to make that happen. I don't know from your local knowledge, Lloyd, if you're aware of anything along those sort of lines.
Not as such, but I think there's certainly going to be surplus properties available. I think some businesses will fail, sadly, but I think a lot of businesses have realised they don't need the huge fixed overhead of office premises. You know, I know a number of people who are planning to close their offices down because working remotely is, particularly where they're providing a service and often on their clients' premises, they're finding, you know, not necessarily locally, but I know one in Leicester and one in London who've got particularly high overheads and they're closing those offices, which, you know, again, about being lean and agile, and helps them offset some of the additional costs that COVID has brought. So I think there will be premises out there. As you know, we were looking to move premises, and I have to admit I've kind of frozen that process. One, it's very challenging at the moment to get things done like surveys, etc. But also nobody knows what's going to happen to the commercial property market. I would imagine there is going to be some kind of decline in it. So you don't want to be buying at the top of the market. But to go back to the question, I'm not sure whether there is. Maybe the local authorities will provide something, but I'm sure there will be availability of office and factory retail space, whatever it may be, when we come through this.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm just pretty sure it's going to be a tricky time for commercial property generally. You know, having gone through what we've gone through, I'm sure many will be questioning, you know, their current arrangements and perhaps looking for something a bit more flexible. It's not for everybody, clearly, and you know, if you need premises, you need premises. But for others, it might really cause them to review their arrangements.
I was actually speaking to the owner of a new property development yesterday, and you know, really bad timing for them. But they're considering totally repurposing their space. You know, so to rather than be, and there will be an element of this, there'll still be, you know, allocation for offices, but almost creating the space where companies can convene flexibly. So recognising that people maybe don't want that physical space where people are working side by side, but they still want to convene teams, they still want to get creative, kind of team build and have conversations and plan and all those sort of things. So they're thinking about it much more in terms of creative space, you know, but how can companies adopt that flexibly, you know, rather than having a kind of fixed cost. So I think property developers it's probably something that's pretty top of mind at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you go to London regularly, there are lots of kind of flexible working spaces there that you can buy into that are very high end. It's quite expensive, but you only pay for what you use. I know we have C4DI here, which has that kind of hot desking system in, but I think you're right, Colin. I think a lot of developers locally will start to look at that model of hot desking, having high end space that you pay as you go, because that's where they'll get the income. And although it's difficult with social distancing at the moment, I think that kind of idea sharing, it will help that kind of, you know, we're talking about the third, where you're getting ideas and innovation from those around you. So I think you're right that flexible working space will definitely become.
And I think that the kind of subtlety to that, a lot of companies are saying they almost want space that feels like theirs still.
Okay.
You know, so they can bring customers as well. So it's kind of that balance. You know, I'm not. You know, so that's just what people are telling us. They still want something that feels that it's their business when people kind of come to it, but it's probably just not going to be a working environment. It's probably going to be more of a convening or meeting type of environment.
Yeah, it's I mean, there's a business opportunity there, isn't there, for organisations that can get that right. As you say, Lloyd, you will pay a premium for it because you only pay what you use. So if you can get the right offer, it could really work for some that can get that right. Just a couple of bits through the chat. So Wayne, thank you for your comment about on webcams. So had a problem purchasing a new webcam. In the end, I had to purchase a new Logitech on eBay. I think there are some there. So I think you can register on the Logitech website to be informed when they're back in stock if you want it directly. And Mina, thank you for your input. Yeah, you might not need a high-spec webcam as the software, e.g. Microsoft Teams, compresses the resolution anyway. So actually, that's really useful. It may be that sort of a lesser webcam perhaps actually will do the job anyway. So that's good. Phil came back regarding the number about the question of business premises. Thank you for that, Phil. I just wonder if you're happy to, would you be happy to unmute and just say a few words, about that?
Yeah, hi, Mark. The intelligence that we're receiving is that a number of businesses that have had their office-based staff working remotely and utilising the various different systems, it has worked very well. Obviously, it's far more difficult for companies such as Lloyd's that have a production facility to have people working remotely, but certainly the office-based element that has worked better than a lot of people have thought would be the case. I know relatives of mine are in that position where their managers are now actively starting to look for smaller premises in order to have more people working remotely and maybe going into the office 1 or 2 days a week. So that sort of intelligence is coming through more and more. It does raise the concern for me that we're going to get a very high demand for the smaller premises. And we could end up with a glut of large premises becoming available as time goes on. But there are vacancies at a number of the managed workspace centres across the Humber region. I know in Hull we have a number of them run both by the City Council and also private organisations by the City Council. You've got the likes of Craven Park Training and Enterprise Centre, you've got the Louis Pearlman Centre, and then there's several private sector organisations. In the East Riding Council have, I think it's about 7 or 8 different business centres around the region, where I'm sure they will have some vacancies. So there's a number of these centres for smaller enterprises or companies that are looking to downsize and just have an office presence.
Great stuff. Thanks very much, Phil. That's much appreciated. And also thanks to Suzette and Roseanne. I think obviously got some good feedback there, and hopefully there may be some more responses there as well. But yeah, thanks for that. So in terms of, there's a couple of things I'm just keen to ask you, Lloyd and Colin, about technology. It is interesting, I think, that as you start chatting about stuff, not everything is about digital. I know that's stating the obvious, but it is a really important key driver and so on. But inevitably, when we're talking about the current situation and how we come out of it, other areas do come to light. And I think that's digital technology sits obviously as part of business operations and activity. So I think that's entirely right. But thinking about security specifically. So obviously we're in a time of change, as we've said a few times. But thinking about the sort of cybersecurity side of things, we're all, a lot of people are now working remotely. We're of course in any case ever more using cloud-based technologies and applications and so on, and have data stored away from premises and what have you. Lloyd, if I can ask you first, what sort of steps have you taken to stay cyber safe? And I guess as well, have you done anything additional given the current situation and plans for the future?
Not particularly. I think, I don't know if people are aware of it, but there is the kind of government cyber essentials scheme, which does give you a roadmap to being secure. Whether you can get support for that. I mean, our accountants were instrumental in helping us get that, because they're very high up in it, because they handle lots of companies' financial. So, it's a bit of an source to talk to. And we went and talked to our accountants about it, but because they were operating very securely with lots of company information, they knew a lot about it. So we went through the Cyber Essentials process. I mean, you can never tell what will happen. We installed a pretty expensive piece of hardware on our site to try and help with speed and connectivity and reliability rather than going cloud. But that created problems in itself once we started working remotely and getting through our sonic wall and so on for people to work effectively. I think it is something people have to be aware of, and I'm certainly not an expert in cyber security, but it is something we are aware of. And I say Cyber Essentials is a great roadmap to give you the basic security you need, and you can take it to, I think there are several different levels, kind of bronze, silver and gold levels, to depending on the severity or the risk you have and the data you hold. We're fortunate that we don't deal with members of the public, so we don't hold individuals' information, but I know lots of businesses out there will, especially if they're trading and particularly if they're moving to an online model.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Lloyd. Yeah, we actually we've used the cyber essentials as well, and would echo that it is very well worth having a look at that. It does give you a good structure to implement security with. Colin, if I can ask you as well, obviously, in the context of your own organisation, but also again businesses that you're supporting. What sort of steps have you seen around, additional steps around cyber security as a result of the pandemic?
Yeah, well, one thing just to reiterate, that totally agree, Cyber Essentials is a really useful framework, especially for smaller businesses, really practical and pragmatic advice there, from getting firewalls in place, but also stuff that isn't necessarily top of mind, just making sure that device settings are set appropriately to make sure they're secure, which I think as people move into home working and on their own infrastructure, their home infrastructure, that's more important. So that's one of the things that we've really made sure that the hardware is set up in the right way to kind of be on public networks, essentially. But Cyber Essentials is a really good way of putting that in place. I think that the other thing is, and what we do internally and what we do for clients is we essentially follow what the police forces do. So that all local police forces have a cyber security team, and they're obviously really aware of what the current scams are that are going on, and they publish really good information on that. I know they run a range of webinars and all those sort of things. So we make sure that we're almost letting the police do the hard work for us, kind of spotting what's going on at the moment, but just making sure that we communicate that to staff and to clients. So there's been a load of stuff happening, targeting home workers, and but people who are maybe trying to access some of the support schemes that the government have put out there. So self-employed people being targeted by kind of fake sites and fake emails that are basically trying to get them to apply for support and provide all their details online, for things like the self-employment scheme that's up and running. So I think there's getting the right things in place, probably following that cyber security, but also just making sure people are aware of the scams that are going on at the moment, which are increasingly inventive.
Yeah. Times have changed like this. It does tend to be an opportunity for criminals, doesn't it? That's for sure.
Just invoice fraud and all those sort of things. I mean, it's just rife at the moment, isn't it? People asking for payments and pretending to be your kind of chief exec and all those sort of things.
I get those emails. My finance manager gets those emails regularly. Kind of, can you pay this now? Which, when I'm sat next to her in the office, is very easy to ignore. But working remotely, I think, is something people have got to be more aware of. And I think when they're on your radar, but as Colin said, the criminals are becoming increasingly inventive with their scams, and it's a sad state of affairs, but it is a fact that there are lots of opportunities for scammers out there at the moment.
Yeah. Mina, thank you for making a comment on there that there is the Humber Police cybercrime unit, and there's a contact there, Alistair Kennedy, police officer there, working on the project. You've shared his contact details for anything that you come across, and also through the National Cyber Security Centre, there is a small business guide as well, which you shared as well. So that's all useful stuff. It's at the sort of top or the bottom of the chat, whichever way you look at it at the moment. So please do take a look at that, and if and copy the details. That could be really useful. Thank you, Mina, for that. So I'm conscious that we've been going for about an hour and a quarter now, and it's been brilliant, fascinating. Thank you both so much for your input so far. I think what I'd like to do is just to ask one final question, and then we've been taking questions as we've gone along, so it's worked really well. But offer an opportunity for people to raise any further questions. I think it's it's looking forward now. None of us have got a crystal ball, sadly, but obviously we can see some of the things that are going on. So it's just really in terms of, from what you've seen, how your plans are changing in terms of what you're looking to do. Colin, if I could perhaps put that to you first, because I know you've been thinking about sort of future plans at the moment. How is it affecting what you're looking to do going forward?
Yeah, so I think I mentioned a lot of the ways that we're now delivering support to clients. So we're using online applications. I think we'll retain quite a lot of that. I think I can almost blend it with digital touch points or digital engagements with physical. So I think that's something that we'll endure. We'll probably continue to deliver a lot more online training, probably deliver more webinars. It's just more time effective. People aren't having to jump in the car. So I think that's something within our business that'll endure. I think we'll continue home working as well. But when we do get together, we'll focus on having a really good fun time. I think that's a thing. And just use this situation to reflect and hopefully create a position where we're helping employees get a better balance in their lives. Maybe if it is hectic at the moment, but can we use it to be more efficient, but meanwhile slow the pace a bit for people? I think the past 5 years we've just been running at such a pace. It's been incredible, and I think there's maybe an opportunity just to reset there. So that's one thing. So more from a client point of view, however, we're obviously practically working with people to get back up and running, but we're equally doing a lot of thinking around what do we think the future will look like, what effects from COVID do we think are going to endure and continue. So one of the things we work with a lot of manufacturers. So there's various trends that we're looking at there. We believe that there's going to be increased localization in supply chains. So OEMs, because they need to develop more resilience within their supply chains, are going to probably want to source more content locally. That was a trend that was already happening, but we think that will increase. What opportunities does that hold to really boost local supply? Equally, what impact will that have on our global trade and the companies we're working with who are exporters? Because protectionism, could kind of work both ways. So working with people on that basis. But equally, we're conscious if there is going to be localization, there's probably going to be cost down pressures that come along with that. So from a technology point of view, we anticipate that the market drivers are coming in place to really push forward industrial digitization. So the use of more robotics, the automation of manual processes or repeatable processes, are probably going to become more automated moving forward. And also the way digital technology across the customer journey joins together, right from getting an order in, into delivery and then into fulfillment and getting that order to someone. We think digital technology and the systems all cut across the whole customer journey, and businesses will probably think less about, you know, the marketing team and the production team, and probably think more in terms of customer journey and structure themselves around that. And technology will be key to hanging that together. So we're thinking the acceleration of digital technology will probably continue, but in different ways.
Yeah, it's interesting because I know we've been running some ICT for Growth webinars, and Wayne, Wayne Willis, who's currently on the call. One of the things that they picked up from their research is that the sort of our ability with technology increases on average doubles every year. So if you think about that, even sort of 3-5 years ahead, 5 years ahead, it's something mind-blowing, like 32 times. If you go 10 years, it's something like 1,000 times. It's really, really incredible. So you can only see that increasing. Thanks, Colin. Just probably same question to Lloyd, really. One, I suppose I've molded two questions into one there in terms of asking about your sort of future plans, but also just some insights into sort of things you expect to see technology-wise. And if you could excuse me just a moment, one of the things about working at home, an unexpected animal has appeared. So I'll just be 2 moments to deal with that, and I'll be back. So I'm listening.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, we will continue to develop the technologies we're using to make us more efficient in the factory. I mean, I'll be completely honest. I was a bums on seats guy in the office prior to this, mainly because there's a significant cost in gearing up to having people remotely working. But now we are working remotely, we're geared up for it. I've found a number of my team are actually more productive from home. Again, it's that agility. I've got over working. I've got over focusing on kind of times you're available and more on outcomes. Is the job getting done? Is it getting done well? And in some ways, that kind of flexibility people have, where they can put the washing on during the day or take the dog for a walk, actually builds in flexibility and agility. The factory's open until 10 o'clock at night, so people have more of a willingness to be flexible and answer a response to an email later at night if they've had a bit of give and take during the day. So I think it's been an eye opener for me that kind of flexible working isn't about people shirking. It's about working with them to get the job done and get the right outcomes. On the technology front, we embrace technology, and we're always looking at kind of factory of the future stuff, whether it's kit, repeatable processes, reliability, whatever it may be. I don't actually see us. We employ quite a lot of people. I don't see us employing less people. I see us employing probably a similar number of people, but a much higher skill sets where they've got IT skills. It's kind of setting up programming machines, engineering, etc., maintenance, those kinds of things, rather than putting tops on bottles. So I think, to keep increasing our productivity and keep training our staff and increasing their skills, I think by whatever means necessary, I think is how we'll go. We've really got our eye on that factory of the future things where there is a lot of automation, but I don't think it will take less people. But it won't take more people. They'll just be much more skilled.
Just one thing to add, Lloyd. I think really like that observation that being more outcomes focused and giving people the flexibility and the agility to achieve outcomes. I think that's really important in a home working setting. And just reflecting, I won't mention any names, but we're working with one client at the moment who's not in this region, so I think I'm safe saying this, but they're asking their staff to log every minute of what they're doing, and this is in a situation where people are already anxious and pressured, and I don't think that's a great thing for mental well-being and things, but that's driven by a lack of trust in the staff to actually do the job, and I don't think that sort of thing's
I think you're right. I think that's the base point's got to be trust, and then the kind of checks outcomes. I trust you to start with, and let's focus on is that getting done. Equally your day-to-day job, but then you kind of strategic stuff, looking at that 33 on my one-on-ones, or even in the team meeting, we can focus on outcomes. So it's not about watching if that green light's on your Microsoft Teams or whatever it may be, or your Outlook. It really is, and people. My team have kind of expected, and some of them have been anxious without me putting any, or I'd like to think I'm trusting them and being open with them, but they have a built-in anxiety that it's kind of that you feel that they're shaking if they're working from home, which is a bit irrational. But as I say, actually, most of my team, I'm finding it being more productive from home, and it's taken them 9 or 10 weeks to get used to the fact that it's okay if I go and walk the dog, or put a load of washing on, or spend half an hour homeschooling with the kids, as long as the jobs are getting done. And I say, actually, this, the commute time, most of my diligent team, now they're logging on when they'd normally leave home. So there's kind of an extra hour in the day there. So why wouldn't I be flexible with them too? And I find we're finding more and more time to do strategic and future thinking, and it's kind of forced people to be more agile with the thinking this situation. So I think there are lots of positives to come from it that we'll be able to take forward.
Yeah, totally agree. Sorry, I missed the beginning of that, by the way. The cat was obviously enjoying it, so she decided she didn't want to go. Anyway, but no, totally agree. And actually, Ros has just put a comment up saying, that they've actually moved to working across 7 days rather than 5, and it's really worked for people so that they can really sort of spread their time. And I think it could, personally, I think it could go either way. We sort of, as a business, contemplating a 4-day week if we possibly can, excepting obviously you may have commitments, on the other day. So I think it's I guess finding solutions that best suit your staff, and perhaps throwing away a little bit of convention. It was I think when we spoke yesterday, Lloyd, I'd mentioned that we had been doing some homework with the kids around America in the 1920s, and these things are always much more interesting, as I said, when as an adult than it was when I was a kid. But one of the things we was looking at was Henry Ford. It just made me think about about this situation, and what you're just saying is that he was a real, I guess people will be familiar with the methods, but and introducing the production line and so on, but he was a real carrot and stick guy. It was paid very high wages and so on, but huge pressure on people, and sort of even had spies actually in the amongst the ranks. So I think times have sort of changed a little bit, moved on since then.
I'm not sure they have. I mean, I don't know. I probably shouldn't say this, but one of the factories I have visited is the Nissan factory up at Gateshead, and it's still very much that kind of mentality. It's very, very hard work, and it's kind of 360 appraisals. It's a little bit Big Brother for me, but I say I still took things away from it. But it's still that very much that Henry Ford carrot and stick. There were lots of people from the mining industry out unemployed there, so big physical guys who are used to working hard, and they get paid even more working at the factories. But when we were there, I think it was £25,000 a minute for that line to be shut down. So things have to keep moving. So I think it maybe hasn't moved as far as you think it has.
Yeah, maybe true in some cases, that's for sure. No, but thanks for your comment, Ros. It's really useful. So I think in terms of, I'd like to just share a few things with everybody about the Digital Catalyst program, and Phil, I know you're keen to say a few words. What I will do, obviously, we're keen to know how this format has worked for everybody. Certainly, I know I'm a bit biased, but I've really enjoyed it and listened to the insights I've heard, and very, very grateful to you both for sort of sharing so much. We talked about best practice visits earlier, but I think this is almost a remote version with with obviously delving into your sort of minds and experience and sharing so generously details of your businesses. So it's been great. But what I'm going to do is just going to launch a poll just to get some feedback from everybody, if you wouldn't mind. So we can just see how this has worked for you. Because I suppose it isn't that important whether we've enjoyed it or not. It's more important whether you've got something out of it. So that will be much appreciated. Phil, I'm happy if you want to say a few words now, or whether if you prefer me to say a few words about the program. How would you like to?
If I can just go first, please, Mark.
Yeah, of course.
First of all, I'd like to thank Mark, Colin, and Lloyd for presenting to us today. And I actually want to pick up on something that came out of what Lloyd was saying, talking about the IT systems enable them to become more agile in delivering their business and their activities. And it's given him a far greater understanding of exactly what's going on in the business, because he's been able to monitor it a lot more closely since developing those digital systems. The key thing I wanted to point out, and it's something you're going to come to, Mark, is about the Digital Catalyst program that is also being delivered by the ICT for Growth scheme right across the Humber for SMEs. What we want to make sure that people are aware of is the fact that there is support available to them for Winning Moves to come in, take a full audit of their systems and understand their systems and see how their systems can be better utilised, with maybe add-ons, as Lloyd referred to. A few add-ons into existing systems can make them all work to combine together in a more efficient way, and really take the business forward by having one system working as a whole. And the Digital Catalyst is an excellent bit of support available to businesses, where actually it doesn't cost the businesses anything at all to make use of that service. It's been delivered by Mark's team at Winning Moves, just the same as the workshop program that is being delivered over the webinars at the moment. And we really do want companies to take advantage of that service that is there. As I say, it doesn't cost you to use it. We don't have the grants available at the moment, although we are still trying to source further funding for systems to be introduced. But this is a way that companies can learn from what's happened as a result of COVID and make sure that they're a little bit more robust, in a better position should anything like this ever happen again. It doesn't have to be a major pandemic, but just something that interrupts their normal way of working.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks very much for that, Phil. It's and actually, you know, obviously I've mentioned a few times through the discussion that obviously Lloyd and I have spoken before, and Lloyd and his business are sort of taking part in the program, and even you know, would say, you know, pretty you know, you're advanced organisation. You do look for new ways of doing things. You've adopted digital, but there's always more you can do, and you know, it's really great that you're part of the program as well.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things I'd say. Don't be afraid to ask. You know, if you want your system to do something, or it's not doing something the way you want it to. You know, historically, we've kind of tried to work within the remit and boundaries of the systems we have. Well, I think with digital technology now, those days are gone. You know, it's a lot more about bespoke, about the big providers, you know, and I think it will go even more. Even if you look at your kind of Xero and QuickBooks, the number of third-party add-ons you can get for those now to suit your business and do what you want them to do at a very basic level. But as you get bigger, I think, you know, we're providing solutions that then will be rolled out to other manufacturing companies just because we're asking, you know, can this be done? We'd like it to do this. I don't want it to do that. So don't be afraid to ask your IT support providers, software providers, guys like you know, how can we do this? Can we make it do this? Can we increase this productivity through digital? I think you were always kind of stuck within the boundaries of your software before, but I think those boundaries have very much been removed now, and you can manipulate other people's software to do what you want it to do.
Yeah, totally agree. The technology definitely helps with that, and there's a will to do it. But as you say, you know, one size doesn't fit all. And I think with technology, I totally agree. One of that will be a future trend is that, you know, rather than looking for the all singing, all dancing platform where you might get sort of 30% utility out of it and 70% sits redundant, actually you'll get sort of pieces of software that is exactly what you want, and you can piece it together with with whatever else you're doing.
Yeah, well, now with things like Boyum, they have kind of hundreds of bolt-ons, and you pick and buy the bit you want to bolt on to SAP, and then it can be modified to suit your needs. So, there are lots of things you can do, and yeah, and we were certainly guilty of that with Sage. We paid for 100% and used 30. Because a lot of the parts of it weren't relevant to us. We didn't need to track international containers. We don't have our own fleet, and whereas now you're just buying the bits of the software that actually are relevant to your business.
Yep. Brilliant. Thanks, Lloyd. Okay, I'm going to quickly share my screen. I'll give you a very quick view of a few things out of the way. View of the support. So really appreciate you. I think everybody sort of stuck with us through over an hour and a half. Really appreciate it. So just take a few minutes just to share this. I think obviously there's some pretty invaluable support that maybe ideal for your for your business. So okay, that's working. So an overview of what the support is. Firstly, is one-to-one support. As Phil said, we've got a team of technical specialists who are available to come into your business free of charge, and to look at what you're doing. What is important with this is that one, obviously it should be stimulating, with enthusiastic. We believe in technology, but we also for first and foremost, this is about helping businesses to improve and develop teams and so on, develop new ideas and so on. So it's important to say that we're not coming in with a solution. We've got no particular affinity to any particular technology or applications or anything like that. It is literally looking at your business, determining what can have the greatest impact quickly, helping you develop a plan, and sort of rolling our sleeves up really to get in and help you to create something, to put something in place quickly, and that's going to have impact not just now through the current pandemic, but beyond that as we emerge. I think the areas that we're looking at is, these are fairly broad, but I'll give a bit more detail about what's involved. Firstly, is helping to improve productivity. Lloyd, I know you mentioned through your presentation that you've managed to achieve 15% increases with the various things you've done. We're certainly very keen to do that, to help you to improve efficiency. I think that's going to be pretty critical as we go through the next period. There will be pressure on costs, so getting more out of what you have is going to be key. Developing new products and services, so the innovative side of things, pivoting, we mentioned, looking at other opportunities, and not just in terms of products and service, but also the customer offer, whether it's your existing or new customers, by way of winning new work. Of course, these days, employees expect to see technology and so on, and they expect you to be up to date. So again, hopefully it helps in terms of attracting and retaining staff. And as we alluded to during the presentation and discussion, staying cyber safe is of course essential. So if that's your most pressing need, we can help with that. We're also very aware of what else is available in the Humber area, both in terms of other support initiatives, but also grants and funding that might be available at any given time. And obviously, where, for example, it's a new innovation, it may be that support or funding can then help you to develop it further beyond the extent of digital catalyst. As I say, we're very keen to sort of handhold and get you started. It isn't just about strategy; it's about rolling up our sleeves and working with you. And I think this is about sort of fast tracking to the right answers. So our specialists have been there, and sort of fought the battles and wear the t-shirt. I'm not sure I got my analogies quite right there, or metaphors, but basically very experienced people. So you're cutting through that trial and error to get to a right solution quickly that's going to have an impact for your business. I'm always a bit wary about saying this is the type of project, because it really isn't exhaustive, and we're really not sort of focusing directly on these. Actually, it might be that we work with you're developing your products and services to integrate digital that will differentiate you from from the competition, or perhaps with your marketing through things like, you know, augmented reality or what have you. So, but to bring it to life a little bit, you know, there's some examples there: moving operations to the cloud, consolidating. You're looking at your technical infrastructure and looking to consolidate it, finding tools and applications to increase productivity. E-commerce is, of course, very key. I think it again came up in the discussion a lot that even though it's been around a while, many businesses, you know, still haven't got involved in it, but are starting to do so now. We can help you sort of take those first steps. Cybersecurity mentioned again. Online accounting. I mean, Lloyd, obviously, you've got a sort of fully all singing, all dancing ERP system. You know, for others, you know, online accounting applications such as Xero and others. Yeah, very, very useful in terms of saving costs, but also it isn't just that, it's actually greater utility. You've got much more control over your finances. You can see things at any one time. Also implementing things like customer relationship management systems. As I say, far from exhaustive, but just wanted to bring it to life a little bit with some solid sort of projects to give you some idea of what we can help with. There's various other areas as well, you know, around marketing systems and so on. Hopefully we can, you know, overcome some challenges. You know, quite often trying to find the technology that's right for you can a bit like, you know, looking for a needle in a haystack. So hopefully we can identify technologies which can really add value, help you to judge which are the best, both from a value for money, but also from a utility perspective, and will give you the highest return on your investment. And not just financial investment. Of course, we all pour a lot of time into getting these things right and using them. So it's got to be you know, solutions that will help you into the future. You know, most of us have got infrastructure in place already, so it's important to understand what these changes might mean in terms of what you have in place already. So again, we can sort of help work through that, and then identifying different technologies. Yeah, of course. And finding how to implement it. So, as I say, the support is available for you know, a minimum of sort of 12 hours of support. So, you know, it might be that, you know, we can't work with you all the way through, but we're certainly very keen to leave you in a place where we've got you started, and you know, you're on the road, and you've put in place, you've agreed all the steps that you're going to take going forward beyond that. So. Very broadly, we come in and do an initial assessment, and again, I suppose echoing something we said during the point that came out in the presentation, is that, you know, one size doesn't fit all. So, you know, we don't want to come in with preconceived ideas. So we'll do that initial digital maturity assessment with you to understand your business, understand where digital fits in, and look for the gaps to make an informed choice with you about which technologies to adopt. That may then turn into an adoption project, or we have a digital sprint approach, which is very innovative, about problem solving, about taking a problem or an opportunity and turning it into reality. We've got a pretty exciting and energetic, but very powerful methodology to help develop new products and services, or find new ways to present what you do using technology, or other areas in terms of your operations. So the outputs of these things are clearly the beginnings of a plan based on that problem or opportunity, plus obviously other areas that we identify around technology. The brokerage I mentioned, so we'll be looking to help you find other support and funding. And the other thing is, other areas, we're very keen to play a role in terms of stimulating the technology provider market locally. So we will help you to try and find organisations that can supply your requirements, and you know, that can help you to move the different initiatives you started forward. I think at the end of the day, we're about, you know, and this program is about impact. So it is helping, you know, your businesses to become more agile, flexible, and resilient. And they're all fine words, but really important. As a business, we use agile for software development, and it does really work. Allows you to, you know, to move quickly, but in incremental steps. It also and perhaps maybe this is the wrong thing to say, but also allows you to fail fast. If something's going off in the wrong direction, you can find out quickly and change tack fast, so that you don't sort of head off onto the horizon on the wrong track. It's about driving growth. Clearly, at the moment, we're in a period where lots of thoughts around survival, but for sure things are turning around to looking at coming out of this period and resetting and then looking to thrive. Ultimately, the outcomes and impacts we're looking for are things like higher profits, improved efficiency, making your your fixed cost base work harder for you and reducing costs where possible, attracting and retaining staff, and cybersecurity. So sort of labouring the point a little bit on that. The contact details, we intend to follow up with you, but please do reach out to us. The programme telephone number is 01482 686 700. Email address digitalcatalyst@winningmoves.com, and the further information is on the web area growmysme.co.uk. There's we're looking at the moment to make some slight changes to that because of the change in how we operate the scheme as a result of the of COVID. But hopefully this summary here will give you a good flavour of what it's about anyway. So please do reach out to us. So just wanted very briefly at the end to share obviously the details of the programme, and I hope that's of interest and of use. I also hope that all of you have enjoyed and found the session today very, very useful. I think the early feedback, the feedback's hidden at the moment, but the early feedback was fairly positive. So that's great. Really pleased to hear that. It's been a privilege to be able to invite Lloyd and Colin onto the panel, and thank you so much for your openness and sharing so many insights and thoughts and what have you. It's been fantastic. So and as I said at the start, you've given up your time for free, and it's really very much appreciated. That's very